March 15, 1942, 400 miles east of Cape Hatteras, North Carolina, 40 feet below the Atlantic's surface. Captain Lieutenant Reinhard Hardegen peered through the periscope of U-123, watching the silhouette of a 7,000-ton American freighter limp across the moonlit water. The veteran commander of the Kriegsmarine's U-boat service had been hunting Allied shipping for 18 months, and this target represented his 42nd confirmed kill. He studied the vessel's profile with professional detachment. Slow, poorly defended, packed with war materials that would never reach Britain. "Another fat merchant," Hardegen remarked to his executive officer, Oberleutnant Horst von Schroeder. "The Americans build them like cattle for slaughter. Surface and finish her with the deck gun. Save the torpedoes for worthier targets." The freighter, SS Steel Seafarer, carried 5,000 tons of steel, grain, and machinery bound for Liverpool. Her crew of 42 merchant sailors had spotted no escort vessels for 2 days. She was alone, vulnerable, and about to become another statistic in Admiral Karl Dunitz's campaign to strangle Britain's supply lines through unrestricted submarine warfare. What Hardegen didn't know, what none of the U-boat commanders prowling the American coast could have imagined, was that they were witnessing the beginning of the most catastrophic miscalculation in naval warfare history. Within 18 months, American shipyards would be launching new merchant vessels faster than the entire U-boat fleet could sink them. The mathematics of industrial production were about to defeat the mathematics of naval warfare, and the weapon that would accomplish this miracle hadn't even been designed yet. The Liberty Ship program, hastily conceived in response to devastating merchant losses, would transform from an emergency measure into an unstoppable production juggernaut. These simple, welded freighters, dismissed by German naval intelligence as crude emergency vessels, would be built at a pace that defied every principle of shipbuilding. American yards would launch entire fleets in the time it took German shipyards to complete a single U-boat. The transformation began that March evening when Hardegen's torpedoes struck the Steel Seafarer. The freighter broke apart and sank within 8 minutes, her crew scrambling for lifeboats in the frigid Atlantic. Hardegen logged the kill, noted the coordinates, and continued his patrol. It was his 24th sinking in Operation Drumbeat, the campaign that German submariners called the Second Happy Time, a turkey shoot against unprepared American shipping. The U-boat offensive of 1942 represented Germany's best opportunity to win the Battle of the Atlantic. Admiral Karl Dönitz, commanding the U-boat arm from his headquarters in Lorient, France, had calculated that sinking 700,000 tons of Allied shipping monthly would strangle Britain's war effort within a year. British food reserves stood at 6 weeks, fuel stocks at 2 months. If the U-boats could maintain the sinking rate, Britain would face starvation and defeat without Germany invading a single beach. The mathematics seemed inescapable. Germany possessed approximately 250 operational U-boats in early 1942, with production increasing to 20 new submarines monthly. Each boat could sink an average of 4 to 6 merchant ships per patrol. British and American shipyards were producing replacements at roughly 1.2 million tons annually, inadequate to offset the carnage. Between January and July 1942, U-boats sank 681 Allied merchant ships, totaling 3.5 million tons. In June alone, 144 ships went down, the highest monthly loss of the entire war. American East Coast waters became known as Torpedo Junction, where burning tankers lit the night sky and bodies washed ashore from Cape Cod to Florida. Corvettan Kapitan Otto Kretschmer, Germany's highest-scoring U-boat ace with 274,333 tons sunk before his capture in March 1941, had established the tactical doctrine that made this slaughter possible. "We should attack by night on the surface," Kretschmer had written in his patrol reports. "Submerged attacks during daylight reduce our speed advantage and limit our tactical options. Surface attacks allow rapid repositioning and the use of superior surface speed to escape." His doctrine proved devastatingly effective. U-boats running on diesel engines could reach 17 knots on the surface, faster than most merchant ships. Submerged, their electric motors reduced speed to 7 knots, too slow to pursue targets or escape destroyers. By attacking at night on the surface, submarines became nearly invisible torpedo platforms that could strike and vanish before escorts arrived. The German naval staff studied British shipbuilding capacity with professional thoroughness. Intelligence reports compiled by Admiral Kurt Fricke's Operations Division showed British yards producing approximately 600,000 tons of merchant shipping annually at maximum effort. American contributions stood at 500,000 tons. Combined Allied production totaled 1.1 million tons in 1941. The U-boats were sinking shipping at 3.5 million tons annually by mid-1942. The equation appeared simple. Germany was destroying merchant tonnage 3 times faster than the Allies could replace it. Dönitz reported to Gross Admiral Erich Raeder, commander of the Kriegsmarine, that victory was mathematically certain within 12 months if current sinking rates continued. This assessment ignored a critical development occurring 3,000 miles away in Richmond, California. On a mudflat beside the San Francisco Bay, industrialist Henry Kaiser was constructing something that would revolutionize maritime warfare more completely than any technological innovation, an assembly line for building ships. Kaiser had never built a ship before Pearl Harbor. His background was in construction, dams, highways, and massive earth-moving projects. But when the Roosevelt administration's Maritime Commission approached him about shipbuilding in 1940, Kaiser applied manufacturing principles that German naval planners considered impossible to apply to shipbuilding. Traditional shipbuilding was a craft industry. Skilled workers riveted steel plates individually, assembled complex systems by hand, and customized each vessel. A standard freighter required 12 to 18 months from keel laying to launch. British yards, even under wartime pressure, needed 8 to 10 months per ship. Kaiser proposed building standardized merchant ships in 60 days. The Maritime Commission, desperate but skeptical, awarded him contracts. German naval intelligence, monitoring American industrial announcements, dismissed Kaiser's promises as propaganda. No shipyard in history had achieved such construction speeds. The complexity of marine engineering, the precision required for propulsion systems, and the skilled labor shortage made Kaiser's timeline fantasy. The design Kaiser chose for mass production had been developed by the British as an emergency freighter based on a 1930s tramp steamer. The EC-2 cargo ship, designated Liberty Ship by President Roosevelt, embodied simplicity over sophistication. At 441 feet long and 57 feet wide, with a displacement of 1,445 tons fully loaded, it was smaller and slower than modern freighters. Its triple expansion steam engine, an obsolete design from the previous century, could manage only 11 knots, barely faster than a surfaced U-boat. But the Liberty ship possessed advantages invisible to German analysts focused on performance specifications. Its design eliminated unnecessary complexity. The hull used simple lines without compound curves. 5 cargo holds with a capacity of 10,800 tons could accommodate virtually any war material, tanks, aircraft, ammunition, food, or fuel. The entire vessel consisted of approximately 250,000 parts that could be prefabricated in sections and assembled like a giant steel puzzle. Most revolutionary was Kaiser's adoption of welding instead of riveting. Traditional ship construction used millions of rivets driven by hand to join steel plates. Welding joined plates with electric arcs, reducing construction time by 70% while using less steel. The technique required less skill, allowing rapid training of new workers. Critics warned that welded hulls would prove structurally weak, but Kaiser's engineers calculated that properly welded seams would be stronger than riveted joints. The first Liberty ship, SS Patrick Henry, launched from the Bethlehem Fairfield shipyard in Baltimore on September 27, 1941. Construction had required 244 days, impressive but still traditional. Kaiser's Richmond Yard No. 2 launched its first Liberty, SS Ocean Vanguard, on October 15, 1941, after 196 days of construction. These early results convinced German intelligence their assessment was correct. American shipyards were producing vessels slowly, using outdated technology, creating ships inferior to modern freighters. The Liberty ships would provide some replacement tonnage, but nothing approaching German sinking rates. What German analysts failed to recognize was that Kaiser wasn't satisfied with these initial results. He viewed them as proof of concept, not final performance. The Richmond yard was learning, refining techniques, identifying bottlenecks. Each ship took less time than the previous one. Workers gained experience. Assembly procedures improved. Prefabrication became more efficient. By January 1942, as Hardegen's U-123 began Operation Drumbeat, Kaiser's Richmond yards were launching Liberty ships every 90 days. By March, the construction time had dropped to 75 days. Workers who had never seen a ship 6 months earlier were now welding hull sections, installing engines, and launching complete vessels in less than 3 months. The turning point in the mathematical war between shipyards and submarines occurred on November 12, 1942, at Kaiser's Richmond Yard No. 2. That morning, the keel for SS Robert E. Peary was laid. 4 days, 15 hours, and 29 minutes later, the completed ship slid down the ways into San Francisco Bay. The construction of the Robert E. Peary represented not just a record but a revolution, from raw steel plates to a fully operational merchant ship in less than 5 days. The vessel displaced 14,245 tons, stretched 441 feet long, contained 2 boilers, a 2,500 horsepower engine, 5 cargo holds, crew accommodations for 44 men, and all necessary navigation and communication equipment. Everything worked. The ship passed all inspections. Within a week, she was loading cargo for her maiden voyage. The achievement seemed impossible. German shipbuilding experts, when informed through intelligence reports, declared it propaganda. No shipyard could assemble a functioning ocean-going vessel in 5 days. The American claim was dismissed as the same exaggeration that characterized Roosevelt's production promises. But the Robert E. Peary was real, and more importantly, the techniques used to build her were being implemented across 18 American shipyards operated by Kaiser and his partners. The 5-day construction was a demonstration, a proof of maximum possible speed. But even routine construction was now averaging 30 days per ship. The prefabrication system Kaiser perfected involved building entire ship sections in inland facilities. The bow, stern, engine room, and cargo holds were constructed separately, sometimes hundreds of miles from the shipyard. These complete sections, some weighing over 100 tons, were transported to the yards and lifted into position by massive cranes. Workers then welded the sections together, connected the systems, and launched the ship. Women comprised over 25% of the Richmond shipyard workforce by late 1942. Many had never worked outside the home 6 months earlier. Now, they operated cranes, welded hull plates, installed electrical systems, and inspected completed vessels. Their integration proved critical to achieving production rates that German planners considered impossible. The statistical reality emerged clearly by the end of 1942. In that year, American shipyards launched 597 Liberty ships, totaling 8.3 million tons of cargo capacity. German U-boats, achieving their greatest success of the war, sank 1,160 Allied merchant ships, totaling 6.2 million tons. For the first time since the war began, Allied shipbuilding exceeded U-boat sinking rates. The gap was modest, 2.1 million tons, but the trend was unmistakable. More critically, the American production rate was accelerating while U-boat effectiveness was plateauing. Captain Lieutenant Reinhard Hardegen returned to Lorient in May 1942 after completing Operation Drumbeat. His patrol had sunk 24 ships, making it one of the most successful U-boat missions of the war. Donitz personally decorated him with the Knight's Cross. At the awards ceremony, Hardegen reported his observations to the admiral. "The American coast is a paradise for submarines," Hardegen stated in his official debriefing. Ships sail individually without escorts. Navigation lights remain lit. Radio discipline is non-existent. We operated on the surface in full view of shore lights. I estimate we could maintain this turkey shoot for another year before American defenses become effective. His assessment was tactically accurate but strategically blind. Hardegen had observed American unpreparedness for submarine warfare, but missed the industrial mobilization occurring in shipyards from Maine to California. The ships he was sinking were being replaced by a production system that would soon exceed his capacity to destroy them. By January 1943, the production revolution was accelerating beyond German comprehension. Kaiser's 18 shipyards were launching an average of 3 Liberty ships daily. The entire American shipbuilding industry, including traditional yards, was producing 140 vessels monthly, totaling nearly 2 million tons. The SS Joseph N. Teal, launched from Kaiser's Portland Yard on September 27, 1942, had required just 10 days from keel laying to launch. The routine construction time across all Kaiser yards had dropped to 42 days. Traditional shipyards like Newport News and Bethlehem Steel, initially skeptical of Kaiser's methods, were adopting prefabrication and welding techniques. The mathematical balance had shifted irreversibly. In the first quarter of 1943, U-boats sank 1.5 million tons of Allied shipping, while American yards alone launched 2.4 million tons of new construction. British and Canadian yards contributed an additional 800,000 tons. For every ship sunk, the Allies were launching 2 replacements. Corvettenkapitan Peter Kremer, commanding U-333 on patrol in the North Atlantic in March 1943, observed the changing reality in his war diary. "We attacked a convoy of 45 ships," he recorded after engaging convoy HX-229. "Sank 2 freighters before escorts forced us deep. Surfaced after 12 hours to discover convoy had reformed and continued without apparent concern for losses. The merchants seem infinite. Sink 2, 8 more appear." The Liberty ship production system achieved efficiency that defied traditional manufacturing logic. The SS Robert Ley, launched from California Shipbuilding in Los Angeles on November 3, 1942, required 2,592 worker hours per ton of completed ship. A year later, the average had dropped to 1,100 worker hours per ton. The improvement came through systematic refinement of every process. Welding techniques evolved continuously. Early Liberty ships used 8,000 feet of welded seams. By 1943, improved plate sizes reduced this to 5,500 feet. Welding speed increased from 3 feet per hour to 6 feet per hour as workers gained experience and equipment improved. Electric welding machines became more reliable, reducing downtime. The prefabrication system expanded to include increasingly large assemblies. Initially, yards prefabricated small sections weighing 5 to 10 tons. By 1943, entire deckhouses weighing 60 tons arrived at the shipways fully equipped with piping, wiring, and fixtures. Stern assemblies weighing 120 tons included the propeller shaft, rudder, and all necessary support structures. These massive sections were lifted into position and welded in place within hours. The human element proved equally important. Worker training programs created skilled laborers in weeks rather than the years traditionally required. Training films, simplified procedures, and specialized tools allowed rapid skill development. Women welders achieved quality ratings equal to or exceeding male workers after just 6 weeks of training. By mid-1943, 18 American shipyards were operating around the clock on 3 shifts. At peak production, the Kaiser facilities employed 196,000 workers. The workforce included women, African Americans, teenagers, retirees, disabled workers, anyone capable of contributing to production. This democratic mobilization achieved output that German shipyards, using forced labor, could never match. The strategic implications crystallized during the Battle of the Atlantic's climax in May 1943. That month, U-boats sank 58 Allied merchant ships totaling 328,000 tons. American shipyards launched 117 Liberty ships totaling 1.6 million tons. For every ship sunk, 5 new vessels entered service. More critically, the U-boat force was suffering unsustainable losses. Advanced Allied anti-submarine warfare, radar-equipped aircraft, escort carriers, improved depth charges, and code breaking sank 41 U-boats in May alone. Germany was losing submarines faster than shipyards could replace them, while Allied merchant tonnage increased exponentially. Gross Admiral Karl Dönitz confronted the mathematical reality on May 24, 1943. At a conference with Hitler at the Berghof, Dönitz presented updated assessments of the Atlantic campaign. The enemy is now building merchant ships at 3 times our sinking rate, Dönitz reported. Our U-boat losses have become unsustainable at 12% per patrol. We are losing experienced crews faster than training can replace them. Hitler demanded continuation of the U-boat campaign despite the losses. Dönitz complied, but his war diary entry that evening revealed his understanding. The battle is lost. We cannot sink ships faster than the Americans build them. The mathematics have become impossible. The production numbers from 1943 demonstrated industrial warfare's new reality. American shipyards launched 1,996 merchant ships totaling 19.2 million tons. U-boats sank 3.2 million tons globally. The replacement rate exceeded sinking by 6 to 1. By year's end, the Allied merchant fleet was larger than at the war's beginning, despite 3 years of unrestricted submarine warfare. The Liberty ship program produced vessels faster than U-boats could even locate targets. In November 1943, American yards launched 142 Liberty ships, while all Axis submarines worldwide sank 28 Allied merchants. The statistical impossibility of German victory became undeniable. Individual Liberty ships demonstrated remarkable survivability that further frustrated U-boat commanders. The SS Stephen Hopkins, armed with a single 4-inch deck gun, engaged the German surface raider Steyr and auxiliary cruiser Tannenfels in September 1942. During a 40-minute gun battle, the Hopkins landed hits that caused the Steyr to sink. Though the Liberty ship also sank, it had destroyed a purpose-built commerce raider, a testament to American crew determination and ship construction. The SS Richard Montgomery survived a torpedo hit that would have sunk most vessels. The torpedo struck the number 4 hold, blowing a hole in the hull, but the Liberty ship's robust construction contained the damage. The crew sealed the compartment, maintained power, and sailed the damaged vessel 800 miles to port. Repair took 3 weeks. The ship returned to service and completed 63 wartime voyages. German submarine commanders reported increasing difficulty achieving decisive hits on Liberty ships. The simple design, with 5 separate cargo holds and extensive internal bulkheads, prevented single torpedo hits from causing catastrophic flooding. Ships that should have sunk remained afloat, limping to port for repair. Kapitän-Leutnant Wolfgang Luth, one of Germany's most decorated submariners with 46 ships sunk, encountered this frustration repeatedly in late 1943. His combat report from October described attacking a convoy and scoring hits on 2 Liberty ships. Both vessels showed significant damage but refused to sink, Luth reported. Extensive torpedo expenditure achieved minimal strategic effect. The American freighters possess extraordinary damage resistance. The production miracle extended beyond ship construction to the entire logistics system. Liberty ships required 300 tons of steel plates, 50 tons of structural steel, 25 tons of pipe, and 30,000 cubic feet of lumber each, supporting industries scaled production accordingly. Steel mills increased output by 300%. Lumber mills operated continuously. Component manufacturers delivered engines, winches, boilers, and thousands of other parts on precise schedules. The SS Robert E. Peary, the record-setting 5-day ship, demonstrated system integration at its finest. Every component arrived at the Richmond yard exactly when needed. The engine, manufactured in Pennsylvania, reached the yard the same day the engine room section was positioned. Winches from Ohio, steering gear from Massachusetts, and radio equipment from Illinois converged on schedule. This coordination across thousands of suppliers represented organizational achievement as significant as the construction speed itself. By 1944, Liberty ship production had become so routine that yards focused on refinement rather than raw speed. The average construction time stabilized at 42 days, but quality improved continuously. Defect rates dropped from 3.2% in 1942 to 0.4% in 1944. Ships entering service required minimal post-construction repairs. The program's scale remained staggering. During 1944, American shipyards launched 1,513 Liberty ships, totaling 20.5 million tons. More merchant tonnage than Germany, Italy, and Japan combined had built in their entire histories. This single year's production exceeded the entire British merchant marine that existed before the war. The human cost of the U-boat campaign was becoming unsustainable for Germany. Of the 39,000 men who served in U-boats during the war, 28,000 died in action, a 72% fatality rate. Experienced commanders were killed faster than training could replace them. By late 1944, U-boat crews often included teenagers with minimal training facing combat-hardened Allied anti-submarine forces. Captain Lieutenant Herbert Werner, commanding U-415, described the changed tactical situation in his patrol report from January 1944. Located convoy of 38 ships 400 miles west of Ireland. Escort included 2 escort carriers, 4 destroyers, and 8 corvettes. Aircraft prevented surface approach. Radar prevented submerged approach. Fired torpedoes from maximum range without observing results. Forced deep by depth charges for 8 hours. Surfaced to discover convoy had passed beyond reach. This is no longer warfare, but survival. The strategic balance had reversed completely. In 1942, U-boats hunted Allied merchants with impunity. By 1944, Allied anti-submarine forces hunted U-boats, while merchant convoys sailed with increasing safety. The Liberty ships that German commanders had dismissed as emergency measures now crossed the Atlantic in such numbers that sinking them was strategically irrelevant. The final statistics of Liberty ship production demonstrated American industrial supremacy beyond question. Between 1941 and 1945, American shipyards built 2,610 Liberty ships, totaling 38.5 million tons of cargo capacity. Peak production reached 3 ships daily, 1 every 8 hours around the clock. The fastest construction time, the Robert E. Peary's 4 days, 15 hours, remained unsurpassed. Supporting this production, 18 Kaiser shipyards employed over 196,000 workers at peak. These workers, many unskilled 6 months earlier, achieved productivity rates exceeding the most experienced European shipyards. The democratic mobilization of American industrial capacity, women, minorities, disabled workers, teenagers, proved that volunteer labor exceeded forced labor's productivity. The cost per ship dropped continuously through mass production. Early Liberty ships cost approximately $2 million each. By 1944, the average cost had fallen to $1.5 million despite inflation and higher wages. The economies of scale achieved through standardization reduced per unit costs while improving quality, an industrial achievement that defied traditional manufacturing economics. German attempts to match this production through dispersed facilities and slave labor failed catastrophically. The Kriegsmarine never achieved submarine production exceeding 30 boats monthly. Each U-boat required 300,000 man-hours to construct in specialized facilities. Allied bombing forced dispersion into less efficient yards. Slave labor, brutally exploited, proved counterproductive as sabotage increased and quality declined. By early 1945, U-boat operations had become suicide missions with negligible strategic effect. In the war's final 4 months, U-boats sank just 49 Allied merchants globally, while losing 153 submarines. The kill-to-loss ratio had inverted catastrophically. For every merchant sunk, 3 U-boats were destroyed. The Liberty ships that survived the war, approximately 2,400 vessels, became the foundation of post-war global commerce. Many served in merchant fleets for decades. Some remained in service until the 1970s, testimony to the robust construction that German commanders had dismissed as crude emergency work. At the Nuremberg trials in 1946, Gross Admiral Karl Dönitz faced prosecution for his role in the U-boat campaign. During his testimony, prosecutors presented detailed statistics of the Battle of the Atlantic. Charts showed American shipbuilding production increasing exponentially, while U-boat effectiveness declined catastrophically. When confronted with evidence that American yards had built ships faster than his submarines could sink them, Dönitz made a remarkable admission recorded in trial transcripts. "I knew American industrial capacity was formidable," Dönitz testified, "but I never imagined a nation could build ocean-going merchant ships in 40 days as routine production. This was beyond my comprehension." He continued with an assessment that revealed German strategic blindness. "We believed the complexity of shipbuilding would limit American production to replacement levels at best. We calculated that maintaining sinking rates of 700,000 tons monthly would exceed Allied construction capacity. This calculation proved catastrophically wrong. The Americans didn't just replace our sinkings, they buried us under an avalanche of new construction. We sank 50 ships one month. They built 200. We achieved our best month and sank 140 ships. They launched 400. The mathematics became impossible." The prosecutor produced photographs of Liberty ships under construction at Kaiser's Richmond yards. Aerial views showed 5 ships at various stages of completion simultaneously, keels being laid while completed vessels launched. Dönitz studied the images silently before responding. "This," he gestured at the photographs, "this is why we lost the war. Not through defeat in battle, but through defeat in production." Every U-boat commander I debriefed reported the same observation. The merchants were infinite. Sink one convoy, another appeared. Destroy 10 ships, 20 more sailed. We were fighting not a navy, but an industrial system that could create vessels faster than we could destroy them. In a 1956 interview with American historian Samuel Eliot Morison, Dönitz expanded on his Nuremberg testimony. The interview, conducted at Dönitz's home in Hamburg, revealed the former admiral's evolved understanding of industrial warfare. "Your Liberty ship program demonstrated something we never grasped until too late," Dönitz reflected. "Industrial capacity, not tactical brilliance, determines modern warfare's outcome. I commanded the finest submariners in history. My crews achieved sinking ratios that exceeded any previous naval campaign. Yet we lost because American shipyards could build vessels faster than my boats could sink them. The Liberty ship itself was inferior to modern freighters," Dönitz continued. "Slow, simple, built with crude welding instead of proper riveting. But it was sufficient. An American industry could produce 3 Liberty ships in the time we built 1 U-boat. The mathematics proved inescapable." He paused before adding a final observation. "We dismissed the Liberty ships as desperate measures by an unprepared nation. We should have recognized them as evidence of an industrial system that could achieve the impossible through systematic organization. That single shipyard at Richmond, it launched more tonnage in 1943 than all German shipyards combined built during the entire war. This was the real measure of industrial power." The liberation of Europe demonstrated the Liberty ship program's ultimate vindication. The invasion of Normandy on June 6, 1944, required transport of 175,000 troops and 50,000 vehicles across the English Channel. Liberty ships operating as transport vessels delivered the majority of material. The 6 months following D-Day, Liberty ships transported over 2.5 million tons of supplies to France. Had German U-boats successfully strangled Allied supply lines as Dönitz planned, The invasion would have been impossible, but by June 1944, Allied merchant tonnage exceeded pre-war capacity, despite 4 years of unrestricted submarine warfare. The industrial production that German planners dismissed as impossible had created merchant fleets larger than any in history. The Pacific War demonstrated Liberty ship versatility beyond Atlantic convoy duty. Modified Liberty ships served as troop transports, aviation fuel tankers, hospital ships, and repair vessels. Their simple design allowed rapid conversion for specialized purposes. The SS Juan Cabrillo, converted to a hospital ship, treated over 5,000 wounded during the Pacific Campaign. The SS Augustin R. Lufkin served as a floating machine shop, providing repair services across the Pacific Theater. General Douglas MacArthur's return to the Philippines in October 1944 relied on logistics support from 220 Liberty ships. These vessels transported troops, equipment, ammunition, fuel, and supplies across thousands of miles of ocean. MacArthur later stated that without the Liberty ships, the Pacific offensive would have been delayed by years. The Cold War's beginning found Liberty ships becoming tools of reconstruction rather than war. The Marshall Plan used hundreds of Liberty ships to transport food, machinery, and materials to rebuild Europe. The same vessels that had survived U-boat attacks now carried the means of recovery to former enemies. The final Liberty ship, SS Albert M. Bow, launched from California Shipbuilding in Los Angeles on October 26, 1945, marked the program's end. Total production, 2,110 ships in 4 years. The achievement stood as the greatest industrial mobilization in maritime history, a record that remains unsurpassed. At a 1962 reunion of Liberty shipbuilders in Richmond, California, original workers from Kaiser's yards gathered to commemorate their achievement. Among them was Rose the Riveter, actually Rose Will Monroe, who had driven rivets at Willow Run before transferring to Richmond shipyards. At 82, she recalled the production miracle. "We were told it was impossible," Monroe remembered. "Build an ocean-going ship in 40 days? Crazy talk, but we learned as we went. Each ship taught us something. The techniques improved. The speed increased. Before we knew it, we were launching ships weekly, then every few days. What I remember most," she continued, "was the sense of purpose. Every ship we built meant supplies for our boys overseas. Every day we shaved off the construction schedule meant materials reached them faster. We weren't just building ships, we were winning the war through industrial production." Henry Kaiser, attending the reunion at age 94, offered his own reflection on the program's significance. "When we started, experts said shipbuilding couldn't be mass-produced. Too complex, they said. Too many custom components. Impossible to standardize. We proved them wrong by ignoring the impossible and doing it anyway. The Liberty ship wasn't the best ship ever built," Kaiser admitted. "It was the most important ship ever built. It proved that American industrial capacity, properly organized, could achieve miracles. We didn't just build ships faster than the enemy could sink them, we revolutionized manufacturing itself." The techniques developed for Liberty ship construction influenced post-war manufacturing across all industries. Prefabrication, modular assembly, and statistical quality control became standard practice. The management systems Kaiser developed for coordinating thousands of suppliers influenced supply chain logistics globally. The women who worked in Richmond shipyards contributed to social change as significant as industrial revolution. Their demonstrated competence in skilled labor challenged gender assumptions that had persisted for generations. Many continued industrial careers after the war, breaking barriers in fields previously closed to women. In 1985, the last active Liberty ship, SS John W. Brown, was preserved as a museum ship in Baltimore. The vessel, maintained in operating condition, still makes occasional voyages, testimony to construction quality that skeptics had dismissed as inferior emergency work. The ship that German naval intelligence had underestimated continued sailing 40 years after the war's end. The statistical summary of the Battle of the Atlantic reveals the Liberty ship program's decisive impact. U-boats sank 2,128 Allied merchant ships, totaling 14.5 million tons during the entire war. American shipyards built 38.5 million tons of Liberty ships alone, excluding other vessel types. For every ton sunk, American industry produced 2.7 tons of replacement shipping. German U-boat production totaled 1,162 submarines during the war. Of these, 784 were lost in combat, a 67% destruction rate. The Kriegsmarine never achieved the force concentration needed to overcome Allied production. At peak strength in 1943, only 240 U-boats were operational simultaneously. This force faced a merchant fleet that grew continuously despite losses. The human cost reinforces the campaign's futility for Germany. Of 39,000 German submariners, 28,000 died, the highest casualty rate of any military branch in any nation during the war. These men fought with courage and skill, but faced an impossible equation. They were trying to sink an industrial system, not a fleet, and no amount of tactical brilliance could overcome mathematical reality. The Liberty ship crews who sailed these vessels faced constant danger, but sustained the supply lines that guaranteed Allied victory. Approximately 8,300 merchant mariners died in the Battle of the Atlantic, casualties proportionally higher than any military service except submarines. Yet the merchant marine continued sailing, knowing that every cargo delivered shortened the war. March 15, 1942, 400 miles east of Cape Hatteras. Captain Lieutenant Reinhard Hardegen watched the steel seafarer sink beneath the Atlantic waves. It was his 24th kill in Operation Drumbeat, his 42nd of the war. The mathematics seemed perfect. Germany was sinking ships faster than the Allies could replace them. Victory appeared inevitable. By March 1945, exactly 3 years later, the mathematics had reversed completely. American shipyards were launching 3 Liberty ships daily. The U-boat force that had terrorized the Atlantic in 1942 was destroyed. Hardegen, who had survived the war, surrendered with his crew aboard U-123 in May 1945. His final patrol report noted merchant convoys so large they stretched beyond the horizon, a fleet that seemed infinite because, from an industrial perspective, it was. The German commanders who had laughed at American shipbuilding capacity learned the cost of that contempt. Those crude emergency vessels, dismissed as inferior stopgaps, had buried the U-boat force under an avalanche of production. The Liberty ships that German intelligence predicted would provide minimal replacement tonnage instead transformed the Atlantic into an American lake. Hardegen's observation that the American coast was paradise for submarines proved tragically ironic. The same nation whose merchant fleet he had savaged in 1942 responded by building ships at a pace that made his victories strategically irrelevant. Every ship he sank was replaced by 3 new vessels. Every convoy he attacked was followed by larger convoys. The turkey shoot became a mathematical impossibility. The U-boat commanders never expected American shipyards would launch Liberty ships faster than torpedoes could sink them. They learned this lesson too late, paid for in the lives of 28,000 submariners who fought bravely but faced industrial capacity that exceeded their ability to destroy it. The Liberty ship program stands as history's definitive proof that in modern industrial warfare, production capacity determines victory more certainly than tactical brilliance. The simple welded freighters that German naval planners dismissed buried the U-boat force under mathematics that proved inescapable. American workers who had never seen a ship before Pearl Harbor transformed into the world's most productive shipbuilders by 1943. Their achievement, 2,110 vessels in 4 years, remains unsurpassed in maritime history. They didn't just replace sinkings, they created the largest merchant fleet ever assembled while simultaneously fighting a 2-ocean war. Reinhard Hardegen survived the war and died in 2018 at age 105. In his final years, he acknowledged what he had failed to recognize in 1942. We were not defeated by better submarines or superior tactics. We were buried under American production capacity. They built ships faster than we could sink them. The mathematics became impossible. That was the real lesson of the Atlantic campaign.